Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're tearing down pretty much everything you thought you knew about one of the most hotly debated topics in health right now. We're looking at the ketogenic diet, but definitely not as some modern internet fad. No, we're going to look at it for what it truly is, a highly effective 200-year-old therapeutic tool for metabolic health. I am so excited to guide you through this today because we're going to map out the exact, chronological, biological timeline of what happens inside your body when you make this shift.
But first, why do we even need to talk about this? Well, let's anchor the stakes right here. Think about it. If you're sitting in a room full of people right now, 9 out of 10 adults in that room suffer from some form of metabolic derangement, basically meaning their bodies are fundamentally struggling to properly process energy. Waistlines are expanding, blood glucose is rising, and overall health is silently deteriorating. We are dealing with an absolute crisis of chronically high insulin and altered metabolism.
And hey, before anyone says, well, people just need to get on a treadmill more, let's take a look at the data. A massive global study analyzing over 30 different geographical populations found that 90% of the worldwide obesity epidemic is driven by diet alone. Changes in physical activity only accounted for about 10%. This completely, 100% debunks that old just exercise more myth. If you want to change your metabolic health, you have to pull the biggest lever you have available to you, and that is the food on your plate.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our roadmap for today. First, we'll cover the metabolic crisis. Then, Phase 1, rapid changes. Next, Phase 2, the glide. After that, Phase 3, total adaptation. And finally, trusting your own results.
All right, let's kick things off with part 1, the metabolic crisis.
So to understand why a low-carbohydrate intervention is so incredibly powerful, you really have to meet the villain of the story, which is chronically elevated insulin. When insulin is high, your body is essentially locked in storage mode. We need a dramatic shift to break that cycle, and that shift happens on a very specific timeline. Think of this as your body's hero's journey. Phase 1 is the drop, covering days 1 through 7. Phase 2 is the glide through that first month, and Phase 3 is the new normal for week 4 and beyond. Knowing this timeline, that is absolutely your superpower.
Moving right along to part 2, Phase 1, rapid changes.
Now, this is the tumultuous first week. Your body has relied on glucose for decades, right? And abruptly cutting off that usual fuel source is a major shock to the system. So, to trigger this biological cascade, you have to build your plate correctly. Step 1, drop your carbs under 50 grams. Step 2, and this is a mistake a lot of beginners make, keep protein moderate, around 30%, so it doesn't accidentally slow down ketone production. Step 3, fill the rest of your plate with healthy, whole food fats like dairy, meats, and avocados. And this brilliantly illustrates exactly why we construct the plate this way. In a high-carb state, insulin is basically acting like a giant biological padlock on your fat tissue. You simply cannot burn body fat efficiently when insulin is elevated. But the very moment you enter Phase 1 of keto, insulin drops, and that padlock just snaps open. You completely unlock your body's innate ability to oxidize fat. Get this, the data shows that overall 24-hour insulin levels drop anywhere from 33 to a staggering 75% almost immediately. Because insulin is this really powerful anabolic hormone that holds on to water and sodium, this massive drop causes a huge initial flush. For the average person, you're going to lose about 2% of your total body weight within the first 5 to 6 days, and honestly, that is almost entirely pure water weight. But this is exactly where people usually quit. They hit the dreaded keto flu. They feel awful and think, man, my body is screaming for carbs. I knew I needed sugar. But as we see in this quote, the feeling of needing carbs is usually just an electrolyte imbalance. Because your insulin plummeted, your kidneys stopped holding on to sodium, you are literally flushing out your vital electrolytes right down the drain. So, watch out for the hidden villain of Phase 1, sodium depletion. It doesn't just show up as typical muscle cramps. Actually, scratch that. It's more like severe brain fog, profound fatigue, irritability, and even a really weird, depressing, doom and gloom outlook on life. Spoiler alert here, the world isn't ending. You probably just need some salt. Adding 3 to 5 grams of high-quality sodium to your day is your secret weapon. It can pull you right out of the fog and totally save your transition.
All right, on to part 3, Phase 2, the glide. Okay, so you survived the rocky first week. Your electrolytes are balanced, and the initial shock is wearing off. During this glide window through the first month, your body starts shifting gears smoothly and ramps up its ability to burn fat like an absolute furnace. We see progressive elevations in fat oxidation anywhere from 100 to 200%, and for highly active individuals, up to 400%. Your liver is aggressively turning those fatty acids into usable energy.
As a direct result, the production of ketone bodies, which are those special little energy molecules made from fat, progressively rises. Notice how blood ketone levels progressively climb through week 1 and week 2 until they hit a peak and finally plateau right around the 3-week mark.
This right here is what we call the honeymoon period stabilizing. During this glide phase, you are going to notice some pretty incredible lifestyle shifts. For instance, your sleep requirements might actually decrease a little bit because your brain is running so efficiently on ketones. That cognitive fog lifts, replacing pure fatigue with sharp, sustained focus. And functionally, things like your cholesterol profiles begin to beautifully improve.
Which brings us to Part 4, Phase 3, Total Adaptation.
Once you cross that 4-week threshold, you reach a completely new metabolic homeostasis. You're no longer just doing keto, you are fully fat adapted. Welcome to the new normal. If you experienced any temporary dips in gym performance during Phase 1, they vanish here. In fact, studies show elite Ironman competitors show absolutely zero impairment in this phase. Muscle glycogen normalizes, your appetite stabilizes thanks to the amazing satiating effect of fats and ketones, and your blood glucose hits this beautifully flat, stable plateau.
Now, what's really interesting here is a term that honestly scares a lot of people: physiological insulin resistance. Please, do not confuse this with the pathological insulin resistance you see in type 2 diabetes. This is actually a brilliantly healthy, protective adaptation. Your muscles are so efficiently burning fat now that they temporarily refuse glucose, preferring to save whatever trace amounts of glucose you have left entirely for your brain and your red blood cells.
Think of your cellular power plants, your mitochondria, as a battery. If you were to flood a fully fat-adapted cell with a massive spike of both glucose and ketones at the exact same time, you would dangerously overload the charge of that battery, causing massive oxidative stress. Physiological insulin resistance is just your cells safely regulating their charge so they don't get blown out. It's literally a sign that your metabolic engine is working perfectly. And finally, Part 5. Trusting your own results.
So, we've talked about all the science, but how do you actually sustain this in the real world over the long haul? Well, it comes down to everyday choices. The biggest trap out there is highly processed keto candy. A recent study showed that even zero-calorie artificial sweeteners can light up the hunger centers of your brain like a Christmas tree, driving you to eat more. Calorically dense, highly processed keto treats will absolutely stall your progress. Instead, build your lifestyle around whole foods you probably already love. Things like meat, avocados, cheese, just minus the carbohydrates.
And above all, you have to remember this profound insight. The science gives us an average of how 100 people responded to an intervention. But you're not an average, right? You are an individual. If a study says you should see a 5% improvement, but you feel a 15% improvement, that is real for you. You must trust the personal biological data that your own body gives you.
So, I'll leave you with this provocative question. Will you trust the average study, or will you take control of your own health journey, track your own metabolic timeline, and truly trust your unique results? Getting metabolically healthy is a massive journey of self-discovery. And now, you've got the map to navigate it. Go out there and see what your body is truly capable of.